The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
It's a Short Time Wrestling podcast, news, reviews, previews, and interviews from around the sport of wrestling. My name is Jason Bryant, here with you always. Today, our guest will be heading into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame in Stillwater as part of the class of 2018, receiving the Order of Merit from the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Nancy Schultz Vitangeli. Now, Nancy, first of all, congratulations, but that's not what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, but I have to say thank you so much, and, to the Hall. This is completely overwhelming. Most of my life it's been my honor and, a way for me to give back to the sport, staying involved in it. So I really feel like this award actually is in reverse. It should go out to everybody else that's helped me, through life after Dave and the Schultz Club and with my children and everything. So I'm really honored, but mostly, so thankful.
And the Hall of Fame has a relationship with one of your side companies there with Rudis, which you've been working with, and it provides some official gear for the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, and also provided this generation an opportunity to rock some old school Dave Schultz Wrestling Club stuff. You can also check out some stuff from Sunkist and some other clubs with the Hall of Fame as well. But what's it mean to walk around a tournament and see some of that old green Dave Schultz Wrestling Club stuff kind of starting to repopulate itself around the mats?
It's really fun. Rudis has honored Dave in a way that has been really amazing. They've brought his name back, and the way that they portray him and the gear that they put his name on, I'm so proud of. And we did. I feel like we raised the bar a little bit with wrestling gear and wrestling apparel, and not only the Rudis line, the Slide Fox and some of the other things. And now, we just recently brought Kyle Snyder aboard, and the gear that with his name on it is going to rock, and we got his shoe coming out soon. So this adventure with Rudis has been a really exciting and been, rewarding path for me. Another avenue of wrestling to stay involved in.
We were kind of joking before we started the show here that, getting into wrestling is as you said, it's like getting into the mafia. And we look around, this is not the first Hall of Fame you've been inducted in. You just can't get away. It brings you back in and in, brings you back, keeps bringing you back.
It does. I saw that meme the other day. Wrestling's like being in the mafia. You can't get out because you know too much. And I completely relate to that. Once you get involved, you just can't. It creates a family environment for you, an extended family that you're just into. And I served on the board of USA Wrestling for a number of years and continue not on the board of the Hall of Fame, but as a board of governors, which just means you've been there and you're still out, helping out and being involved. So, yeah, it's a great relationship that we have in this wrestling family, which is, leads to us chatting today, right? This extended family that we have includes people from all over the world, and that's how I got involved in doing the Beloglazov U.S. Tour 2018.
Yeah, and that's a dynamite segue, Nancy. I did not even prompt you to do that, but that's what we're talking about today. Is there are a couple of
crazy, Jason?
Yeah, I think I'll take a look. I'll take credit for that one. But today we're talking about two bad brothers wrestling fans know so well. Sergei and Anatoly Beloglazov. If you look at their resumes, countless world titles. I know on the Sergei side, he's got 8 world and Olympic gold medals. Anatoly has 5 world and Olympic gold medals. Matter of fact, there is actually a poster I have in my office that's about 3 feet from me right now with Sergei Beloglazov on it. Now, let me describe what this is to you. It is the World Wrestling Grand Championship from 1989, and on it is John Smith and Sergei. That was the super match. We've seen a lot of super matches coming up, but this thing was big. Well, it was given to me years ago by Jack Childs, the retired Drexel head wrestling coach, and it had a signature of Sergei on it. So a couple years ago, I'm working at USA Wrestling, and actually more than a couple at this point, and team camp is in there, and here's John. I had this thing rolled up. I'm like, hey, John, can you sign something for me? And I'm not an autograph guy. You just kind of accrue them. I don't really seek them out, but so I unroll it for John, and John's like, oh, hell, I'd like to have me one of them. And kind of, I can't quite do his Oklahoma accent, but so on now, I have a signed poster that John Smith and Sergei both hand signed. So that's the one thing that every day I look and see Sergei Beloglazov. I know some people maybe still see Sergei in their nightmares because he was so good.
So that's probably really true. Yeah, I think, Sergey and with Anatoly, they're some of the greatest technicians that I've ever seen. That, in Dave's time, watching them on the mat, they were magic. And I've watched Anatoly fewer times, but I've been with Sergey doing clinics. He used to come over and do some clinics for the Dave Schultz Wrestling Club. We'd have clinics for fundraisers and things like that. And he's, I would see these coaches sitting with their pens and their paper out and their jaws dropped, and they can't even put the pen on the paper because he's running through techniques so fast and so furious that they can't even, get it down fast enough. So I'm excited to bring these brothers. First of all, I love them so much. They've been friends of our family for so long. And to bring these countries together again. You bring the Russians over, to visit the United States. I love, mixing cultures and mixing friendships and then to have them be such great technicians, the opportunity that not only are we bringing them to some clubs, some kids' high schools, but we're also bringing them some regional training centers. So it really is an amazing tour, and lots of people are going to get an opportunity to train with them.
Yeah, the Beloglazov Brothers 2018 U.S. Clinic Tour, Masters of Technique, and I think you might be understating Masters of Technique. And again, before we started, we were looking at the schedule that these guys have, and as we record this on May the 16th, they're landing today, as it's a Wednesday. You'll be listening to this on Monday or Tuesday, but they are landing today. And before we even get into the schedule, tell me how much of a freak-out moment this is to know that there's connect. This is like the biggest connection with planes, trains, and automobiles you've ever had.
I have been booking travel for the last month and a half. So I sent them a spreadsheet, a Google Doc spreadsheet. So it has every moment that they're supposed to be getting on a train, plus their confirmation number, plus the time they leave, the time they arrive, who's picking them up, who's taking them to what hotel, which hotel they're going to, the name and address of the hotel. So, and I did that for 22 locations. So I have to tell you, a few times I sat up in the middle of the night with a panic attack, like, oh my God, they're not going to make that connection. But now most of the planning's over, and so, I turned it over to them. I sent all the gear and stuff that they need for their tour, and it's their turn, and it's not like they're novices at this. They've been traveling, doing clinics for most of their adult lives, so they know how to, handle this. But it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm so excited to have them. I'm going to see them at 3 times during the tour. I'll meet them in Oklahoma right after the induction ceremony. They're there to do a couple of small clinics in Stillwater. I'll see them again out here. They're doing 3 clinics near my area in Portland, doing West Lynn High School, Vancouver, Washington, and Buckley, Washington, around the first part of July. And then I'll see them again at their last clinic. I'm going to say goodbye to them as they do their last clinic down at the Oswego Hitchcock Camp in Morro Bay, California, and then they're heading to Canada to do the last part of their tour in Canada.
Yeah, so rather than going date by date, I'll sum it up here. But if you want information on this quickly before we even get into the meat and potatoes of this tour, wrestling.life. You can see the big banner for the Beloglazov Brothers tour there. And Nancy, just talk about the relationship with Dan McCune and wrestling.life to help put this thing together and get the word out via the web.
Well, we had a common friend, Eric Deuce, who's also coaches at Sunnyvale High School as an assistant coach with Dan McCune. And Dan McCune runs the wrestling.life website. And he's just really great at reaching out and staying, updated with all the things that are going on with wrestling and staying communicated. He's an amazing coach, and Sunnyvale High School have been so successful under his reign, especially with his work with Eric. So I'm really proud to have him helping me out, and he's been a lifesaver for me. I've done the people side communication with coaches, and he's done all the logistics on the website, registration, updating registration, keeping the coaches communicated with how many kids they got enrolled. So they all have spreadsheets so they can see who's registering day by day on the website. And of course, they're all doing their own registrations in their own area and at home, and of course, wrestling is always a walk-in. So it'll be interesting to see how each one separately comes out.
All right, so this tour starts May 17th and 18th. Again, this is after we've released this episode, but we go from Chicago. Mm-hmm. Dr. Dave Kirby's the first one out of the chute. I guess that's kind of a good person to have lead this thing off in coordinating that location.
Sergey and David have been friends for years. So they start off with, friends that they know, and we send gear to that location, and they kick it off there. And yeah, it's starting out. They're spending about 3 days with them, kind of getting acclimated before they hit the road for this ungodly tour schedule that I've created for them.
Yeah, so we go from then Chicago, then to the University of Michigan, then to the New York Regional Training Center where you hook up with Kendall Cross to do something. Then you stay in New York, meet Frank Popolizio and John Deagle for 2 days of clinics there. Then to Northern Virginia and Fairfax, doing something there. Then out to Oklahoma to Norman, then into Stillwater, then out to Lakewood, Colorado, then to St. Louis. Then we drive into Iowa. Then we go into Wisconsin, back to Iowa. Then we keep going back to Michigan, back to Illinois, then to California, Oregon, Washington, before again finishing in California for the U.S. side. And those of you listening in Canada, you've got the Beloglazovs coming in too. So that is all within the span of May 17th through July 9th.
July 8th. Yep.
Yeah.
And then they head on July 9th, they head to Canada, and then they're doing a few up there. And I said, I'm not going to do Canada. So they're taking care of their own tours in Canada. When I first started this out, I kind of pictured 5 or 6, clinics, and it just kept growing. Word of mouth, made a couple phone calls, and pretty soon I had, 50 requests for them to come in. And we'll probably do it again next year, too. I think I'll try to centralize them a little more next year. I think they're bopping around a little too much. So next year I'd like to try to maybe group some more events in closer places, and we'll see what we can do about that.
And looking at the cross-section of the contact people, it's not just big names. We mentioned Dave Kirby, of course, Kendall Cross, but you've also got some smaller camps that are looking to bring out. You got Sarah Levin with what she's doing with Wrestle in St. Louis as a youth organization. I mean, what's it mean to be able to put these two greats, not just in the regional training centers in the United States with like Michigan and up in New York and even in Stillwater, but the kids clubs like Sarah's doing in St. Louis?
I think it's a real opportunity, not only for the wrestling technical aspect, but for the aspect of, learning, meeting people from other cultures and other countries. I think it's widening their horizons and opening their eyes to different wrestling techniques. So, and for our regional guys too, Sean Bormet's hosting one at the Regional Olympic Training Center. And again, I just feel really happy to expose our athletes here in the U.S. to that kind of talent from other countries.
You talked about the relationships that this sport brings, with our little mafia joke. But when we look at the relationship that started this all, it was Alexi's son, Anatoly's son, Alexei, and you've got an Alexander and an Alex, and there's, the kids have had the same names. I mean, you guys go way back, but the foundations of getting this thing started. Why was this such a yes for you to do?
Just because I really care for the Beloglazov. I sent you a picture, of Xander. I think he's about 7 months old, sitting on Anatoly's lap over there. So it's just been part of our family. Dave and the Beloglazovs competed in the same tournament year after year after year after year. So for us, I saw them 5 or 6 times a year, every year in every World Championship, World Cup, Pan American, every kind of competition like that. So we became friends over the years and know each other's families and things. And so all of a sudden to have Alexei, he's now, in his 30s, as Xander is, my Alex, to have him reach out and said, hey, my dad and my uncles wanted to know if you could help us put a couple clinics together. And I couldn't type yes fast enough. It's not like it's difficult to find coaches who want to have somebody of their caliber come into their wrestling room and teach for a few hours. So we were offering up half-day clinics and full-day clinics. So things that a regular wrestling program could afford, and some people wanted them for 2 days. So we just had something for everyone to offer, and that made me feel very good that there was a wide range of possibilities for people that were interested in bringing them into their wrestling room.
These two competed as part of the former Soviet Union and did it in an era where they were just dominant. I think Sergey had like one bad tournament his entire career or something like that. And has spent time.
Which speaks volumes, right, about from the depth of that time period when it was just the Soviet Union and all of those countries were under one banner. You can't even imagine the difficulty in maintaining those first positions in that depth.
And it's crazy. And, and Sergey's had time coaching here on U.S. soil. He's coached the U.S. national team for a bit. He was an assistant coach at Lehigh as well on the college side of things. And I've only met him once, and that was at the 2003 World Championships. It was him and Anatoly, and we were at the lobby of the New Yorker, and I'm barely knowing who these guys are. I'm getting into my international wrestling. I'm learning my international wrestling chops, and I know some of the Americans had brought him some Jack Daniels, and I'm like, well, why would you? What? They're not going to drink vodka? Gary Abbott looks at me and goes, these guys are from Russia. They're from the Soviet Union. They can drink vodka whenever they want. You know when they get to drink Jack Daniels? When they come to the United States. So it was just kind of a joke that when
right.
they kind of embrace the American Tennessee whiskeys. But when we look at Sergey and the relationship he's had with wrestlers in this country, it's not just, oh, he's a clinician. He's coached some of our good ones here. And, of course, the 2004 era kind of left on not necessarily the greatest note, but what makes Sergey so good from your eyes? And I mean, I guess that's kind of obvious, but what makes him a good clinician in this situation?
Well, for me, and I think, and because I've got a skewed point of view because of Dave Schultz, I see Sergey similar to Dave Schultz in that he plays chess with wrestling. He's always 5 moves ahead of you, because he said, if I do this, if he does this, you do this. Oh, you don't do that, you do this, and I have this. He's always got a setup for a reaction, and he's so confident, and his technical knowledge is so extreme and so wide that every move you make, he has 5 options that he can work from there. And to give a coach or a wrestler that kind of versatility, that, every position you're in, no matter how your opponent reacts, you have a repertoire to work from, that to me is a great technical coach.
The resumes do speak for themselves of where they've coached, not just in the U.S., the Japanese national team, men's and women's national teams on the Russian side, Singapore, Kazakhstan. Anatoly's been coaching in Canada, Australia, also has coached his home nation, and then Belarus. So a lot of people seek these two out in terms of their abilities and what they can do for their national teams. And when you look back at the era when Dave is wrestling and the Beloglazovs are wrestling, Can you circle a point in time that, like, yeah, this is when we became friends with the Beloglazovs?
Oh, I think it was probably the first time I started going to international competitions with Dave, which was around 1982. I think they were already on the mat and starting to win, and from that time until, oh God, I don't know, even when they even stopped competing, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, I think. When was the last time they won a Olympics? Was it 84? Well, we didn't go to 84, but they were there in 80 for the Moscow. So it was probably, 7, 8 full years of seeing them regularly.
And that's one thing to realize. During that run, you did mention 84, where the Russians didn't come. We didn't go in 80, as most people know, but it was in the heart of their titles. I mean, the Olympic Games in 80, there's a gold, and then the Olympic Games in 88, there's a gold for Sergey. So not really a stretch to say 84, he could have been a real threat.
Oh, for sure. I think everybody, it was a slap to everybody. We had, 2 Olympics back to back where not everybody's there and attending for different reasons. And of course, it's frustrating when you're on a roll and you're at the top of your game. But, what's amazing for these guys is it didn't matter. They just kept going and kept winning. So you pull an Olympic out from underneath them. All right, let's get the next one. That just doesn't happen very often. There's a few highlights, people that can do that. But most people, once you pull one game out, that's, it's done. But not Sergey.
When we look at the barnstorming nature of this camp, has this enabled you to reconnect with people that you haven't seen in a long time in order to do something like this?
I'll tell you, Jason, I stay in touch with wrestling a lot. So most of the people are people that I stayed in touch with. Just had to send them a quick text. Hey, I'm bringing the Beloglazovs over. Would you like to host a clinic? So, but it's always great to work with your friends. Sean Gourmet wrestled for the Dave Schultz Wrestling Club. Kendall Cross was the executive director of the wrestling club. Both of those guys, were around Dave and knew Dave. I was around them when they were developing athletes. When they were first coming out of high school and getting into college wrestling, I spent time with them. John Azevedo, was on many teams with Dave over the years. And also, he was an assistant coach at the University of Wisconsin. So these are long time friendships. And all I had to do was say, hey, they're coming. Do you want them? And then start, making the work, doing the work to make it happen.
So how much of your time has this tour actually taken up? I mean, well, one, I guess we need to figure out what are you doing, for general staying busyness, I guess would be the first question. What are you doing in life now in terms of, generally making a living, and how much has this tour impacted that life?
Well, I'm still involved. I've got Rudis going on, so that's an ongoing place that I go back and forth from, and go to Ohio, work with Tommy Rowland, Jeff Jordan, and Jesse Lang with our Rudis company. I still serve on the board of governors for USA for the Wrestling Hall of Fame. I'm not completely active in USA Wrestling, but try to stay involved in any of the fundraisers and organizations, things they have going on. I help with the U.S. Wrestling Foundation at any gala or any events that they have going on. So my foot is still deeply in wrestling. I've also just recently moved to Oregon, where we have a compound. We have 3 different houses on it and share it with family and friends. And so I've got a garden and an orchard. So life has become a little more rural oriented. So I have a little bit of that. But this actually, this took front and center stage for about 3.5 months now. And putting this together was a labor of love. And I can't think of something that I'm going to enjoy more is just seeing them have a successful tour here in the U.S.
Yeah, and the tour is we got a generation of kids that, like before, the Foxcatcher chatter and the Rudis shirts and things of that nature, that brought Dave Schultz's name back to the present. Again, he passed away a long time before these kids were even born.
96,
now,
right?
Yeah. So I mean, I was 17 when that happened, and I'm 38. So the kids now, they don't know who Sergey and Anatoly are until they get to see them. And what do you think these kids are really, and maybe even the coaches who were probably still young, younger than me when Dave passed, to know that Sergey and Anatoly, they were synonymous with Dave Schultz, and how much that bringing them into the fold is going to give these next generation of kids the understanding of how great wrestling was in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what they're going to find is 2 humble, fun-loving wrestlers who love to impart technique to other wrestlers. They have not only been great technicians themselves, but if you look at that coaching bio that you just kind of, wandered through a minute ago, I mean, they have raised the level of wrestling in probably 20 countries around the world, by coming in and being a head coach or an assistant coach at some program around the world. And they have, I can't imagine the millions of lives they've actually touched over the years with their wrestling. And, just for the kids to have a couple of hours with them in a room, I think it will be amazing opportunity.
Again, wrestling.life/Beloglazov. That's BELOGLAZOV. Or you go to wrestling.life and click that banner link. And what's cool about the website is, I'm impressed with what Dan's done here. We've got graphics, flyer for each particular spot, and you click it, and you can register right then and there and sign up and go. So we've got it's color coded to Stillwater, okay, because it's orange. Then we got the color coded to St. Louis, and then we got the various schools, other high schools. I mean, it's just a really sharp job in presentation for this. So those who have got kids in those areas,
big kudos. Right. Big kudos to Jenny Skinner at Rudis. She's one of our designers that spend a lot of time and energy helping me design the graphics for this tour, as well as Dan, who provided lots of time and energy to create these websites that promote the tour and allow coaches, having this was a huge thing for coaches. We got a clinic coming up, and we not only will help you do some promotion all over the internet with social media, but we'll also provide a website where all you have to do is direct people there. We'll do all the collection. We'll do all the registration. We'll provide you the link that you can check on your registration, and we'll send you the list and the money at the end of the collection process. So I don't know that we could have created a better process for coaches to host a clinic.
Yeah, it's been solid. So again, Sergey and Anatoly Beloglazov, 8-time Olympic and world champion is Sergey, 5-time Olympic and world champion for Anatoly. And to put that in perspective, we've got Jordan Burroughs right now, who's got 5 World Olympic golds. Now, we're looking at, he's a generational talent for us in the United States. Kyle Snyder's, it appears to be on that path already. But in the Soviet Union, these guys, I mean, we still don't have, we've got John Smith, with the 6th straight World Olympic, and Bruce medaled for like 30 straight years in heavyweight. But internationally, these guys, like if there's an argument of who the best ever is in wrestling, and these guys happen to be Americans. They're they're like 1A and 1B in terms of maybe comparison's sake. What do people really need to understand about how great these guys were?
Well, I just don't think there's anybody else that has a career like these guys. There's nobody else that touches this kind of record, really, when you look at both of them together. And what's great is, can you imagine being at a wrestling clinic and you say, I'm working on this move. What do you think? And then you get to go ask Sergey, what do you think? And then you get to go ask Anatoly, what do you think about this move? You talk about having the ability to bounce back and forth and get some good advice on whatever move you're trying to work on right now.
So the legend goes is that why Dave was so respected in Russia is he they liked the way he wrestled and the fact that he learned the language. How slow going was it for the Beloglazovs to learn English back in your era?
I think Sergey. Well, they coached. Sergey coached over here for so long, and Anatoly coached in Canada for quite some time. So in the beginning, we were speaking Russian. I speak a little bit of Russian. Back in the day, I spoke more when I was traveling with Dave a lot. But we spoke Russian at the first part, and then once they come over and started coaching, we could switch to English. So their English is really good now. But it's been fun because I've learned to communicate with them and had a friendship with them in both languages.
It's just like growing up with my grandparents and my mom speaking 3 or 4 different languages at the same time. With the Ukrainian strain, the Russian, the German, and the English, it would be like, well, that's crab cakes as they argue around Christmas dinner.
The merging, right?
Yeah.
I remember when Xander was little, we had a knock at the door one time. We were living at Foxcatcher, and obviously, there's a lot of turnover. There was different, I'd have the Italian team staying with them, the Czech team staying with us. We had the big house, and lots of the athletes would stay with us. And I remember there was a knock on the door, and somebody came in, and the first question Xander asked was, what language do they speak? He was like 4 years old. It was like, oh, what a crazy upbringing. Just have this revolving door of people from other cultures walking in all the time. It was great.
I do want to kind of shift gears a little bit away from the camps, and Xander posted something not that long ago, and it was a picture of a young child, and basically the lesson of that is the picture was of a young John DuPont, and it was basically a message forgiving him, and when you look at that type of thing and the resolve, I guess, that Xander has about the whole ordeal. What was your reaction to that? And two, I mean, how do you look back at Xander now as a parent? As he's an adult doing some great things, not just in wrestling, but in life.
Well, first of all, I could not be more proud of Alexander Schultz and the man he's become today. He's involved in lots of nonprofit work and lots of work in Black Lives Matter and prison reform and stuff like that. And I think his message about forgiveness was more about in the bigger picture. And obviously, it's a huge step. And I think Xander has always forgiven DuPont. Even when he was a young kid. I think our take on it, and my expression to the children is there's no reason for hatred and all that. It doesn't do anything any good. I think you have to look at the situation where someone came from. And sometimes just our system is broken. It's not the human being. I think that's what Xander's trying to say is sometimes we have this assembly system, for a human being, and they come to this upbringing or, crisis, whether they're rich or poor, and then we spit out someone on the other side, and then we blame them for their disastrous response. And I think Xander is trying to look at what kind of system we put people through, and that we need to sometimes look at ourselves and our communities and our systems that produce people with these kind of problems, and taking the responsibility for that is important.
And you spoke about the humanitarian type stuff too with Zoe bands. I've actually still got one on my desk. I don't wear it as much as I used to, but I definitely got behind that effort. Of course, him and Matt Novogratz tried to pretty much push the prowl out there and got their names back into wrestling and got to hang out with them and some in Paris, the World Championships. But, it doesn't.
Yeah, and I think in some format that the idea behind prowl is actually going to be moving forward. It's not in exact the same way, but I think Xander and Mike Novogratz turned over an opportunity for wrestling, and I think there's certain formats of that will be moving forward. And yeah, it was great. Xander really loved being back involved in the wrestling community. He's got a lot of friends there that he knew starting when he was born. So great friendships there.
Now, finally, I want to circle back to the Hall of Fame induction class, and one of the athletes that's going in as a distinguished member is Christy Davis. She will just be the second woman inducted as a distinguished member in terms of the wrestling match. Tricia was the first to go, and Tricia Saunders. But Christy was such a big part of women's wrestling in its, I guess, the USA golden age. I mean, we got a group of kids that are coming through right now, but she won 9 world medals and one of the greatest careers of all. What's it mean for you to see another woman go into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame in this distinguished member category?
Well, Christy stands out, head and shoulders above so many other athletes, men and women. So it's really great to see her going in. And I know that we're going to see many more, great women athletes going in. It's taken some time to turn the corner and kind of get everybody on board in supporting women's wrestling and getting more programs going and honoring them. So we're moving in the right direction in the United States. And in the world, women's wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the world today. So we are going to be seeing a lot more opportunity for competition and also recognition in the future.
It's a pretty cool class going in. You got yourself and Stephen Abbas, the late Lee Allen, Henry Cejudo, Christie, Gary Kessel's an official, and Medal of Courage, Jay McLaughlin. I mean, when you look at the group that you're going in with, and you've been to these things for years and knowing the speeches and having to go through some longer speeches than others, we shall leave those names out of this episode. Jason. But, what does it, going back to the Hall of Fame, I mean, this is a special one for you, but each year when you get to go back and see friends and colleagues inducted into this institution that honors not just wrestling greatness, but greatness overall in the sport, I mean, is Stillwater a kind of a homecoming for you each year when you plan to attend?
I've been celebrating my birthday every year here for probably 25 years now, I think. So it's really special for me. I find it one of the most amazing weekends in the sport every time. You gather these people that had amazing careers, and they differ in experience and time periods and whether they were coaches or wrestlers, but really you don't find people that are going to the National Hall of Fame that were just average in the sport in some way. They are. And the stories they can tell and the friends they bring and the circles that are created and the reunion that is had, it is such a fun weekend. And if people out there have not been to one of the honors weekends in Stillwater, Oklahoma at the Wrestling Hall of Fame, you should take some time to attend one of them. And you really can pick any of them. Go find somebody that you respected that's being honored, or just go and see the museum. But it's quite an event to participate in. And if somebody hasn't been to the Wrestling Hall of Fame recently, the renovations that have been done over the past, 2-3 years ago, it is an amazing, up-to-date Hall of Fame that all of us should be able to be proud of.
And finally, I want to touch on this year's Dave Schultz High School Excellence Award winner. Kid named David Carr out of Ohio, has some pretty famous fathers and uncles along the way, and when the decision was made that young David Carr of that legendary Carr wrestling fame was going to pick this up, what were your reactions?
Oh, I'm just so proud of that guy. I've known him for so many years, and I've seen him at wrestling tournaments, encouraged him, sat with him after, with some wins and losses and stuff. I'm just really so happy. I love the Carr family. They've been great friends. And, to all of the winners, the state winners, the regional winners, the national winners, these kids are just amazing. As well as, the women's side of it, the Tricia Saunders High School Excellence Award, same thing. These guys, these kids, they're not just great wrestlers. They're also, doing something in their community and giving back to the civic opportunities. They've got ridiculous grade point averages, and I often have to tell them, you realize as we sit around the table that Dave Schultz would not have won this award. His name on it, but he would not have qualified in these categories. These kids stand out. They're achieving in so many areas, not just wrestling, but making wrestling a part of their overall achievement. And there isn't one of them that, it's so difficult when you look at the selection of these winners, both regional and national, because every single one of these guys and women that get recognized in these states could be sitting up at the national table too. So, kudos to all of them. It's an honor to have them recognized with Dave's name. And all of them will be receiving letters from myself and Tricia, thanking them for their dedication to the sport and, congratulating them on their award.
Nancy Schultz promoting not just a camp tour which you can find more information on with Sergey and Anatoly Beloglazov at wrestling.life/Beloglazov or just wrestling.life. You can check that out. She's also heading into the Hall of Fame this year as a recipient of the Order of Merit. Nancy, always great talking with you, whether it's on the show or just a goofy text message or out at an event. It's always a pleasure, and it's been great to get to know you over the years and call you a friend. And best of luck with this camp tour. And those, again, if you want to figure it out, wrestling.life. You can check out all the dates and locations there. And Nancy, any final thoughts as we wrap up here on this episode of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast?
It's all my pleasure talking to you, Jason. Hello to the big wrestling family out there. Take care.
Always good to hear from Nancy and what she's doing within the sport of wrestling. And again, congrats to her on her upcoming induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. That is Honors Weekend, first weekend of June. Information about that, you can actually go attend and check out these great legends going in this year. Information at nwhof.org, National Wrestling Hall of Fame website. So that is in Stillwater. Now, what was not going to be in Stillwater, as I mentioned, I'm not going to be in Stillwater this year because I got 3 straight Final X events in June. I'm just coming off a great week, and you kind of hear my voice when you announce 3 straight days. The third day usually is where you're hurting, but especially after like World Championships where there's 6 straight days. But came off the UWW Juniors, and the Senior World Team Trials Challenge Tournament. Good days of wrestling down in Rochester, Minnesota, which is it's like one of the wrestling capitals of this country, if not just the Midwest, but this country at all. I mean, not just in the Midwest, but we got Northern Plains there. We've had the Clash there, the Minnesota Christmas Tournament. There's been all sorts of section tournaments there. It's a great town for wrestling, and it's a great town overall. Rochester's good. It's not just saying that because Mike Bush State Farm at MikeBush.org is my insurance agent, and he's based in Rochester, or Kathy's Pub is a good little spot. I actually had a burger at Newt's, a couple nights down at Dooley's, and it was always good. It's always fun to people watch at those things, too. But good times had down in Rochester. Some great wrestling. Looking forward to those 3 Final X events. Information there on finalx.tv. So, great event down in Rochester. And then for once, an event that I get to go work and I can just, get in the car and drive home. Stop by my buddy Eric Sanders' house, who was recently married, almost a year ago. He's the older brother of Zach Sanders, who wrestled in the challenge tournament, the mini tournament finals, losing to Dayton Fix, and then Fix ended up beating Tony Ramos, 2 matches to earn a shot to wrestle Thomas Gilman in Lincoln on June the 9th. But Eric went from Fargo, where he wrestled at North Dakota State, and moved to Pine Island, which is almost in between. I would say it's in between. It's closer to Rochester than it is the Twin Cities, but stopped in. He is quite the home brewer. So as a bit of a beer snob that I'm becoming, the Hefeweizen he produces is just it's the best stuff on the planet. So stopped by the house, said hello. He had a nice cold growler waiting for me. So as I got back last night, sat down to do the curation for the Mad Talk Online daily wrestling news. And sometimes when I'm on trips or I'm on vacation, I'll just say, it's 2 weeks ago, I'm in Houston on vacation. I'm like, I'm not gonna update. I was just spending time with my wife as we got away for our anniversary. But sometimes when I'm working on trips, I don't have a full amount of time to dedicate to it. But pretty much almost every single day, you're going to get free daily wrestling news at madtalkonline.com/news. You sign up, it's sent right to your email. So, as I'm sitting down curating last night, I got a nice cold glass of just some fine Sandersbrau. I don't think he doesn't actually name his beers there's Uda Pills up here that has a really darn good Hefeweizen. It's called like Ewald the Golden or something like that. And no, this is just Hefeweizen. So Sandersbrau, I think, is kind of an unofficial name that everybody that has picked up some homebrew from him when he was in Fargo and now that he's back out here in Minnesota. 5-time state champ, by the way. It is just it's worth going out of your way to pick up. So last I was living in Fargo, I would pick up a growler on my way home. And Eric, good to see you, man. Congratulations. They are expecting as well. So another Sanders coming to probably the wrestling world come October. So congrats to Eric and his wife for their upcoming little bundle of joy and for his just awesome homebrew. Yeah, a lot of Eric Sanders talk here today, and it's not just about the Pioneer Club down in Wabasha, which I can throw another Mike Bush reference out. But that being said, this is the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. One other thing I would like you to do is if you like what you hear here on the network, I would implore you to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, still kind of known to some people as as iTunes. But if you really like what we do here, I would implore you to go over to mattalkonline.com/contribute and either contribute to the programs and programs plural monthly or a one-time donation. Aaron Sweezy picks up the latest member of the team. Thanks, the Sways, the message board legend. Basically has been a small college advocate for a very long time, and the Sways does pick things up and joins the team here. So big props to you. Thank you, sir. And for those of you team members, we've got another assortment. I should put out a Twitter poll if I'm going to go with glasses, mugs, or glasses this year. So if you're listening, fire back with @Jason M. Bryant. Should I go with draft glass or should I go with mug for our patrons? Because I'm thinking about getting another set made up. Because I'm completely out, and I know I owe Rob Roy some. I know I'm going to owe the Sways now mug or draft glass, or I'm not sure, but that's how you do it. You can get some cool shirts. I got to re-up my order with Compound. Cliff Fretwell and the crew. He's going to be coming on the show here in the coming weeks to talk about all things wrestling. He's that's my bad Georgia accent. Nathan Fernandez and the finals. All right, anyway, enough for that. I'd like to thank you for spending your time with me, even with my raspy voice, because you've always got time for Short Time. The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Clothing. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. First time listening? Well, you can change that by going to mattalkonline.com/get-short-time to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or listen on your favorite podcatcher at mattalkonline.com/listen.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to mattalkonline.com.